Let's get you a political reaction here with political analyst and leadership expert, Professor Erwin Schwella. Prof, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Let's perhaps start with your general thoughts on the outcome of that elective Congress in the Western Cape today, with Tertius taking the reins there to lead the province into next year's elections.
Thank you so much. And let's start with process context. In a somewhat and sometimes unusual way, when there are even party elections in South Africa, there were no, shall we say, direct evidence of brown envelopes coming from boots of cars, and nobody was assaulted or assassinated. From all the reports I've received, it was an event which went down with the delegates in a pleasant and professional way. So that in itself, I think, is very commendable. Now, on to the elections. It was a hotly contested election, especially for the top leadership position in the Western Cape for the DA. However, in the end, Mr. Tertius won that election, and from my information, with a fair margin. And that was a free and fair election. Mr. Simmers is a valuable and respected candidate, and will do a good job to lead the DA under these circumstances.
What would he need to prioritize as we approach the 2024 elections, and really needing to keep power of the Western Cape, as he says his priority would be? How would he do that? The political landscape is continuously shifting in South Africa at the moment because things are so volatile for households with the cost of living crisis, and I think people are desperate for decent leadership.
The point is to do well and keep on doing well what you do well. And in the Western Cape, there is serious and professional governance. And Mr. Simmers, with the team of the DA, will continue to do that and do it well. The second thing is then to expand into new areas, and that is continuously a quest to connect to the people. And the South African people is a diverse group of people, and that requires a team that are committed and capacitated to do that. So keep on doing good governance, and then expand your electoral support on that basis, and by serving all of the people of the provincial jurisdiction with which you are working. Of course, there is also the very challenging set of circumstances around coalition governance, and in that sense, indications are that the Western Cape will probably still be governed by the DA, just with a smaller minority, but possibly also still with a direct outright majority. But even if a coalition might be necessary in the democratically governed, DA governed currently Western Cape, the coalition question might not be as challenging because there might be a fairly compatible coalition partners available.
Prof, you speak about diversifying the electoral base of the DA, and they've been criticized of recent for being one-sided when it comes to racial politics and favoring one race over another. And so how then do they attract a diversity of people and voices when they do have that racial cloud hanging over their head?
Yeah, it's an interesting observation. When all of the pictures that we are shown, amongst others the one shown recently on the show, actually indicates that the DA in those pictures look more diverse than any other party leadership in the country. And in that sense, it is often then, of course, the case that one is not only judged in terms of the observations that people make, but also the fact that you have political opposition who wants to create a particular perspective and perceptions on you. There's no doubt that at least on first observation, the DA is the most diverse party in the country. And I would challenge anybody to prove me wrong, especially if you look at the pictures. So then if that is not an indication of diversity, then people have to find ways of, in some ways, creating another set of perceptions. And that, of course, is because there is political opposition. However, as I've said, if you look at the provincial leadership of all other parties, the DA is the most diverse.
Yeah, and I suppose one of the big things we'll have to focus on as we look at diversifying the voting base of the DA are some of the big issues that plague not just the Western Cape, but the country as a whole, Prof. The issue of crime, corruption, and really just the high cost of living that people are grappling with. That is something, if we can see the DA dealing with from now already, would get the attention of a potential voter next year.
In a country which is still very rife with racist and other, shall we say, criteria of judgment rather than good governance, we do understand that for many years probably to come, some form of racial connectivity will be very necessary, in a sense that we must connect with empathy to all the voters. And by the way, I'm not a member of the DA, and I'm not necessarily doing this in support of them. But what is essential is that we should also follow the Constitution in terms of transformation. Now, the Constitution has one section which spells out the values of governance. That's section 195 of the Constitution. And that actually gives a guideline to what true transformation is. And it essentially says that leadership in the constitutional governance system of South Africa should be diverse. However, it should also be effective, ethical, professional, and development orientated. Then, of course, if one then applies those criteria, which are the values of governance in South Africa, then one should also go and look at whether, that will contribute to service delivery. And then the emphasis is also on diversity and representativity, but not only on diversity and representativity. And we need to have that debate about what is true transformation. True transformation is about effectiveness, ethics. It is about integrity. It is about professionalism. It's about service delivery, and also, and justifiably so, and necessarily so, representativeness. The DA governs well because it's, in its own way, succeeds in being ethical, effective, work with integrity, professional, and service delivery orientated, while also probably being the most diverse political party in its leadership and membership in South Africa.
Yeah, and I suppose that kind of leadership is going to be crucial at a national level, Prof, as we wrap up our conversation, in that the ANC, for example, has struggled to separate matters of the party and the state, and the two have become intrinsically intertwined. And the DA in the Western Cape has been able to keep the two separate. At a national level, that model of leadership is going to be absolutely crucial, but one wonders if what's been done by the ruling party at a national level can be reversed or at least reduced to some form of normalcy for the citizens of South Africa.
I give advice to political parties across the political spectrum when I am given the opportunity. And my advice, currently requested on this program by you and not by the political party that we are discussing, would be to become less populistic and more professional. Secondly, to become more evidence-based rather than based upon emotions. And then thirdly, to work towards good governance as a service delivery dimension. And in that way, we will have the best of all worlds. That would mean that we have and the ANC is a valuable political party, and it is a constitutional political party. However, in some ways, it has remained, to some extent, caught into the freedom fighter mode rather than the political party and government mode. And sometimes it's doubtful whether it follows the National Democratic Revolution as it were, guidelines or the constitutional guidelines. And as long as there's that schism, there will be continuously breakaways, factions, and difficulties in driving unity of purpose and finally delivering good and well-governed services to the South African population.
Thank you so much for those insights, Prof. And thank you for joining us this afternoon. That is a political analyst and leadership expert, Professor Erwin Schwella, joining us this afternoon.